Ever since Kell Brook signed to fight Gennady Golovkin, many people assumed that he would never drop back down to welterweight, regardless of what happened in the Golovkin fight. And even Eddie Hearn and Kell Brook before the fight were indicating that it was highly unlikely that he would drop back down to 147. But I was always telling people, you know what? It depends on Kell Brook's options after the fight. I always felt that if Kell Brook beat Golovkin, then there was absolutely no way that I saw him dropping back down to 147. But if he lost to Golovkin, particularly if he lost in decisive fashion, I always felt there was some type of chance that he would go back down to welterweight. Because being a champion at welterweight, he has access, particularly after the performance he put on against Golovkin, as brave as it was. He's more marketable now. His name is bigger worldwide now than it was before the fight. And so being a champion at welterweight, he can go straight back in to a pay-per-view fight. It would certainly be pay-per-view in the UK. His next fight at welterweight, it would seem, would have to be against his mandatory challenger, Errol Spence. He may get a slight extension on when the fight has to be made because of the fact that he's having eye surgery, but it would seem as though he has to fight Spence next if he's going to keep the IBF world title. And indeed, according to Eddie Hearn, it looks as though Kell Brook is thinking about keeping the IBF title and defending it. I'm going to quote Hearn directly here. He says, as far as Kell is concerned, he is still the IBF world welterweight champion and is reluctant to vacate that belt unless he gets a mega fight in another division. He goes on to say, as it stands, he needs to heal. We will find out this week if he will have surgery or whether it's better to recover naturally. We will wait and see. In the meantime, he has been really down about the defeat, but that is his winning mentality. Knowing him like I do, this will only make him stronger. There is already interest from HBO in a fight between Canelo Alvarez and Kell next May. That's a fight Kell would absolutely love, and he has said so to me. Common sense would also suggest that the fight Britain wants to see with Amir Khan should also be possible. Then there's Miguel Cotto, which would be a huge fight. They are the three main ones we're looking at for his comeback. We want to go straight into a big one. So those are the words of Eddie Hearn. He's talking about Kell Brook keeping his IBF World Welterweight title. And again, as Hearn said, it's dependent on whether he can get a big fight in another division. If he can get a big fight in another division outside of welterweight straight away, then he almost certainly will vacate the IBF title. But if he can't, then he's going to keep it, folks. He's going to drain himself back down to 147 and he's going to fight Errol Spence. Because now that Brook's name is bigger and Spence is a mandatory challenger, Brook would be automatically guaranteed to get, 70% or more of the purse against Errol Spence, and that will be a pay-per-view in the UK. So that's a big payday for Brook right away. And if he fought a unification with Furman, that would be a big pay-per-view wherever it was. I mean, actually, it may not be pay-per-view in the States, actually. It might be on PBC, but you never know. Maybe it would be pay-per-view, particularly after Brook's performance against Golovkin that has gained him more worldwide recognition with the bravery and whatnot that he showed. So, yeah, it all depends on his options. If the options are there at a different weight to get a mega fight right away, he'll take that and drop the IBF belt at welterweight. But if he can't get that, then he'll fight Spence. And I think he'll lose to Spence. A lot of people still don't understand what Spence is about. And they're saying, nah, come on, Hat Man. Kell Brook's going to destroy Errol Spence. I'm telling you right now, if Kell Brook drops down to 147 and fights Spence, he's going to lose. And if he don't get a big fight at light middleweight, he's going to take that Spence fight. Because you look at the guys at light middleweight. Canelo is with Golden Boy. Canelo is never going to give Kell Brook anywhere near 50-50. He's certainly never going to fight Kell Brook in the UK. Kell Brook would be very much the B-side. Would he get a decent payday? He still might. The other guys at 154 pounds are, and again, that's assuming Canelo beats Liam Smith, which is not a foregone conclusion, but I believe he will. And the other guys at 154, you've got the Charlo brothers and Erislandy Lara. The Charlo brothers are both with Al Heyman, as is Lara, but the Charlo brothers have got, I would say, a bigger fan base in the United States than Erislandy Lara does. So out of all the top light middleweights out there, I would say Lara would be the one who would be most likely to travel to the UK to fight Brook. But he would want an absolute fortune for doing so. And Brook would definitely be taking the short end of the purse. No question about it. Yeah, if Brook abandons his IBF welterweight title, he is just a contender again. And he can't really call shots the way he could being the welterweight champion. And even as welterweight champion, he was having to make a lot of concessions. And, fair enough, the performance he put on against Golovkin will stand him in good stead at the negotiating table, even if he is just a challenger. But still, he didn't beat Golovkin. It was a gallant performance, but not a victory. So he's still going to be the B-side if he goes to the negotiating table with the Charlos or Lara or certainly Canelo. Yeah? So this is what Kell Brook has to weigh up in his mind now. Even Miguel Cotto, he's still going to be very much the B-side. So don't be surprised, don't be shocked if none of those big fights are offered to Kell Brook. Don't be shocked if he goes back down to welterweight, defends his belt against Errol Spence, particularly if the IBF give him some extra time because of his eye. Don't be surprised if the Spence fight happens. And again, I have to reiterate, I've got Spence beating Kell Brook. I think he's overall a better fighter. Yes, I think he's stronger. Somebody took massive issue when I said this in a previous video that Errol Spence is stronger than Kell Brook. I believe he is stronger than Kell Brook. Errol Spence is tremendously strong. And I've been following Errol Spence from very early on in his career. And I've been impressed with his progress. And one thing I was very impressed with about Errol Spence very early on was his attitude. This is a guy who, shortly after turning pro, was in the Mayweather gym sparring Floyd Mayweather and Adrian Broner, among others. And he was giving those guys the business in sparring. So much so that apparently Floyd Mayweather got upset with Errol Spence because he thought Spence was coming in there and being disrespectful by the way he was putting it on Floyd in sparring. And they apparently had some type of, argument or heated discussion and whatever. And since that time, Floyd tried to bring Errol Spence under his wing and use him as like some type of attack dog. Because he was saying, yeah, Spence is going to go and deal with Furman. Spence is going to go deal with Broner. When he was having his little beef with Broner, he was trying to send Spence to go and deal with Broner. He saw Spence as that much of a threat to him. When this is very early on in Spence's career, he saw Spence as that much of a threat. He thought, you know what? I don't need this guy coming at me. I need to be using this guy and steering him as my own personal attack dog to go and take out some of my potential rivals. When I saw that type of attitude from Spence, where he was going in the Mayweather gym and trying to put it on Floyd in sparring and putting it on Broner, I thought, wow, this is some serious confidence. This is not a guy who's coming in the Mayweather gym like some sycophant. This is a guy who's going in there trying to stick it on Floyd. Great attitude. Yeah, great attitude. And that alone, I thought, would take him far. The fact he's not intimidated by people that are that successful with that type of reputation. So that impressed me. And then obviously since then, what he's been doing in the ring has been impressing me. His body punching is impressive. His physical strength is impressive. Remember, the Chris Algieri fight, go and look at my videos prior to that Chris Algieri fight. I was saying that this is a walk in the park for Errol Spence. Chris Algieri's got nothing for him. Spence is going to destroy this guy. But yet go and look at the comments. In the comment section of those videos I did about Spence prior to fighting Algieri. People were saying, oh, you got it wrong, Hatman. I think Spence is actually going to have a very tough time here. Some people were even picking Algieri. Quite a few people were picking Algieri to beat Spence. They just didn't get it. Yeah? They said, oh, well, Algieri went the distance with Pacquiao. If he goes the distance with Pacquiao, there's no way Spence is stopping him. Algieri went the distance with Khan and gave him loads of trouble. Khan's way more experienced than Spence. Sometimes, people, it's not about experience, it's about ability. Yeah, and I've always felt that Spence has got some serious ability there. He's not a perfect fighter. He's got flaws, of course. I remember seeing Spence hurt quite badly in one of his early fights. You know, he don't have an iron jaw by any means. I'm not saying he's chinny, but he certainly don't have an iron jaw. So, you know, let's not act as though I'm saying that Spence is invincible. No, he's got flaws, but so has Kell Brook. And when I weigh the two styles up against each other and what Spence can do and what Brook can do, particularly with Brook draining himself back down to 147 and with that eye injury, and it will be his next fight against Spence if he keeps his IBF title. When you combine all those factors together, I can't personally see Kell Brook winning the fight. I would be taking Errol Spence to win, and I'll be favouring him quite heavily. The only thing I would say is that if the fight takes place in the UK, which it probably would, that would, you know, give, in my view, a bit more of a chance to Kell Brook, given the fact that Errol Spence will be fighting on foreign territory in a hostile environment for the first time. We know that Golovkin was able to do it without too much hassle, but he was a highly experienced international amateur, as Errol Spence was, to be fair. He did go around the world, but he wasn't quite as experienced as Golovkin was. But certainly as a professional, I don't think Errol Spence has fought outside the United States, whereas Golovkin has fought outside of the United States many times. And obviously he's from Kazakhstan anyway, but still he's fought in Germany, he's fought in Monaco, he's fought in the United States, he's now fought in Britain, etc., etc. Whereas Errol Spence has just been fighting in the United States the whole time. So maybe fighting away from home, that might be a bit of a factor. But you put these two guys on a level playing field and the fight happens next at 147, I'm rolling with Spence all the way. He's beating Kell Brook. He's going to go for that eye. Anyway, people, drop your comments in the comment section below. Let me know how you feel about this. As I say, it's all to do with options. Kell Brook's not looking to be a normal contender. He wants super fights from here on in, or very big fights from here on in. He's not interested in going back down and fighting regular title defenses and all that kind of stuff. He's only interested in pay-per-views right now. And he's certainly not interested in just going back and being a regular contender, moving up to 154 or moving down to 154 and having to fight his way into a mandatory position. Kell Brook is not interested in none of that. He's interested in going straight in to another pay-per-view fight. And if he can't get that at light middleweight, people, he is going to go back down to 147 and fight Spence. That's what's going to happen. Let me know how you feel in the comment section below. It's your boy Hatman. I'm out.